Welcome to the first season of Farm Rescue on Farming Simulator 25. We're on the Highlands Fishing DLC in Scotland. The map is called Kinlaig. It's going to be an exciting one. But first, we've got to do something while I wait for Bobby to get to town. Let's go on this pier with our fishing rod here. We'll definitely get some fishing in while we're in Scotland. Definitely be something we're doing. And once we get to know the family we're working with, we'll get over to their farm momentarily. A lot of the things we're going to be doing is around fishing. The Fraser family has called us to help because the fish markets, the fish food market specifically, has gone a little bit insane. They're not able to afford to buy fish feed and breed the fish like they were recently. So they're struggling financially, and we're here to help them with that. So we're going to, once I'm done catching this fish, we're going to head on to that property. Like I said, we're still waiting for Bobby to get here to help us out. But he'll show up when he does. Let's go ahead and release that. We don't need to carry around a bunch of fish. But let's head on over to our rental car that we have in town. I was not able to get the farm rescue truck here in time to help out the family, but I did get to know the Fraser family a little bit. The son is really the only one left running the farm. Everyone else has pretty much abandoned the operation at this point. So we're gonna head on in, check out their farm and what they have set up, and really start getting to work. And wow, I got to get used to the steering here, but really get to work on building some profit and some revenue to be able to eventually start generating our own fish feed on the farm. I feel like that's going to be the main opportunity for success for this family. And luckily, actually, we didn't want to leave yet. So the old Kinlaig Feed Company is something that has gone out of business recently, and it's because of places like Amazon and other large companies really cornering the feed market recently for fish and causing the price to skyrocket. So that caused the Kinlaig Feeding Company to go out of business. I see this as an opportunity for us to come in and eventually figure out if we can get enough funds to take this over. It's already an existing factory that would be perfect for us to get the family to be able to produce their own feed. And really, we want to make this operation make a ton of money, not just survive. We want to help them thrive. So let's go ahead. Let's get back over to the farm now and show you around. We got a lot of work to do in August, and I haven't set a deadline for this project yet. It's our first farm rescue project as a new company. We just successfully sold our whiskey company. So we have a little bit of leverage when it comes to finances that we might be able to help with here if they're not able to secure any type of loans or line of credits. And so those are things we're going to get into with the Fraser family as we go. But let's get back to the property. And most likely, we're going to have to get busy right away. I believe right here is the local dealership, so that's something to keep in mind. We'll probably be there often as we get some upgrades around the farm, or even just repairs needed to be done. And we can see to the left, we do have one field. That gold field here that we're coming up on is ready to harvest. It is owned by the Fraser family. To the right are their Highland cattle, which is something that they have as well. And we'll be talking to them about that because I'm not sure that's going to completely benefit them long-term with their goals. And then if we just kind of park right here for now, get this open, we can see we do have a beautiful wheat field here that's about just under 7 acres. So we should get a decent amount out of that. It's not the best yield. I think we're going to be able to improve that too, from what I understand with the way they've been treating these fields. And then over here we do see some canola growing. I don't believe this field's going to be ready till next year to harvest. We'll see how it grows here. We'll learn a little bit about Scotland. Kind of backing up and jumping on over here, we have a barley field. So 2 fields that absolutely need to get harvested in August. So those will be 2 of our top priorities, and there should be a little entrance right here. There we go. And cruising up to our left, there is a grass field that we'll be getting to soon. We're gonna have to get somebody cutting the grass on that because there's some animals on this farm. Let's go ahead and park in the garage here, and we'll do the rest of this tour on foot. But you might have heard them when we drove by. We do have some sheep, and I was debating, as I've been, starting to make a preliminary plan here, is there's lots of mouths to feed on this farm, but these guys will generate wool. So that could be a very important way for us to generate some revenue. Look at that guy jumping around. To be able to, start making some money and making some decisions. They do have a nice T8020 New Holland. Looks like we do have a cedar back there. The Massey Ferguson, we have a nice harvester. It's small, you know, these fields aren't huge, so this is definitely going to get us by the 8570. And I believe in here we have, yes, the JCB. We have a front loader set up there with the pallet forks, and it looks like some tillage equipment back here, a little cultivator, some silage bunkers that we may or may not get into, and there's their grain silo. But one of the main features of this farm is back here. We're walking up to it right now. This is the breeding tent for trout and salmon. So this is where they're just, you know, breeding the fish, and we need a ton of feed for this. And so what happens is they generate these babies here, and then they move the babies down the hill a little bit right now. So we just come down this road and make a nice right here. And there's this little lake. So they don't have a huge operation, but this was definitely their main source of income, was selling these trouts. And yeah, salmon and trout they do generate here, but you can see it's empty right now. They've completely ran out of feed to where these productions, these are not really up and running right now. So that's going to be our number one goal, is figuring out, you know, like I said, the market is rough to buy feed. I believe they go through, yeah, it's roughly 7,000 liters of feed is what they need a month. And I did see some on hand, but it was the last of their inventory. Yeah, I believe it was right next to the harvester here. Yeah, we have a little bit of fish feed left over. It looks like about 4,000, so that wouldn't even get us through a month. And so that's why they've kind of shut down the operation. Not a lot of funds to buy more, just kind of staying afloat. So long term, you know, that factory that we're looking at, that's what we're going to want to look into to really speed up this operation and maybe grow to an actual larger aquaculture farm and not just a fish farm. Because right now we're just a small fish farm. Maybe we expand it. Maybe we just make this really profitable for them and start cornering the market ourselves in town for fish and bring back the local economy is what our real goal is. But learning a little bit more about what's going to be needed, even if we get the $270,000 to buy the fish food factory, we're going to also need the inputs to the factory, which is going to be flour, soybeans, and canola oil. The good thing is we have a crop right now growing, or two crops that could generate flour if we could get a flour mill. And there's also canola growing, which we'd need a production to generate, you know, canola oil from the canola. Soybeans is something that we'll have to plant next year. I even did a little scan around the whole town here to see if there's any fields we could lease or, you know, potentially buy long term that are already had soybeans planted in it. Unfortunately, there's none this year, so that's gonna be kind of a struggle. But I'm looking at this land here, and I'll have to look at their finances and see, are they making a ton of money off these Highland cattle? They're beautiful cows. Let's take a look at them up close. There we go. This little 6-month-old right here. Pretty awesome. We have an adult right in front of us here. 18-month-old adult, and then we have, I thought I saw, yep, there's a baby, and there's our baby cattle. So we would, you know, basically hay would be the minimum that we'd want to feed them. And I mean, I could just feed them grass too. Yeah, but we need to get something for water. There, it looks like they are out of water. They're out of water and feed right now. So decisions need to be made. So if the decision is made to sell these cattle right now, we get about $5,000, not the best profit off of them. And then we could also sell the fencing, see if there's someone in town that's interested in the trough here, and make a little bit of cash off of that, and then less mouths to worry about. And then that would leave us just the sheep to worry about. So I'm going to talk with the Fraser family. Cameron is the main son that is still around running the farm. So maybe Cameron would be interested in selling. I don't know if he has his heart set on keeping them, but that's also some land that we could leverage to have another field. Because we do have 3 fields that we could use for, you know, canola in one, soybeans in another, and then wheat or barley to make some flour. But having another one would be nice to just really have some more variety and more opportunities. This is a decent sized field here. A little smaller than their other plots of land, but stuff we need to think about. But time's wasting. These mouths do need fed. And one thing I've kind of noticed is I'm not sure what they were doing for giving them water. I don't know if they're bringing buckets out there, but there is no equipment on this farm to give water to the cattle. So that's some decision that I definitely hope to make pretty quick. But I do want to give them at least a little bit of food, because I mean, they can go without water for a little bit longer, but I don't know how long it's been since they've ate. So let's go ahead. I did see some hay bales over here. Ooh, the turning radius on this is tough. Let's see if we can improve that. Our all-wheel drive now is on, and much better. Okay, so I believe just around the corner on the other side of the sheep. I want to look and make sure they have feed as well. Oh yeah, they got a little bit of food in there already. That's right. All right, see if we can get these 3 bales over there, and that'll be a good start while we either shop around to sell these cattle or look around. I guess we're not shopping, but you know what I mean. But it'll give us time to keep them alive while we try to make a little bit of cash off of them if we do decide to get rid of them. It's a gorgeous town, though. Be nice to have a little different scenery than we're used to, being outside of the States. You know, I was really hoping to get a home farm established. And then, oh, we lost them. And then eventually start helping out around the town that we live in. But started getting this business model going. And I got a call from someone who knew the Fraser family that we worked with in Montana. And so it was a natural connection for us to come out here and help. And like I said, Bobby will be going back and forth, though, between here and the U.S. because we do have a property we purchased. A set of farms. One is mine and one is his that are real near each other that we just need to start establishing. I was struggling with the forks and lost my train of thought there. But yes, so Bobby will be coming back and forth to help us out and going to the U.S. and getting those farms established so we can, you know, have something at home. I don't know how long I'll be in Scotland. Time will tell. We might be going back and forth ourselves, depending on the time of year and what there is to do here. But let's get focused. I think we want to use the New Holland and potentially start getting the grass cut. But those fields absolutely need harvested. So maybe we start with that. I'm going to park this here from now. And hopefully Bobby does show up pretty soon because we've got to get rolling. So we'll use the New Holland to operate the grain cart here, and we're going to get that out to one of the fields, and then we'll get the harvester all prepped. So I believe we're going to want to head this way, and I want to go do the field farthest from the farm first so that as the day gets old, we can be closer to home. It's not a big field. We'll get them both done, but just the way I like to operate. I like to work further away from the farmyard and those fields first. And we'll have to double check if they know the soil types so that we're making sure we're treating these fields accurately as time goes on here. So let's go ahead and just park right here for now. We're off the road, but we're definitely going to want to make sure the canola field is being treated well. And I'm going to call my contacts and see if we can get some soil samples run today on these fields even before we get started with the harvest, because it would be nice to know all the data. We know the soil types. We'll be able to see the yield for every location and know, you know, basically off of some historical data in the area, how much we can improve the yield next time around. That's going to be key, you know, making sure we're getting as much yield out of these fields as possible. And we're going to really have to make some decisions and potentially have the family go into a little bit of debt to make this successful long term. But you know, the first few months will really be about evaluating. We might make some big moves like the cattle, but outside of that, we're going to be pretty, whoops, going the wrong way. We're pretty careful at first while we just get to know the farm a little bit. Trying to see if there's a good spot to put this header trailer that's not going to be in our way. And I think I do see a spot up here. Yeah, that should be good for now. All right, before we get started here, we did tap into the finances of the family, so we have access to all of that, and right now we kind of have the green light to to do some things within the money we have. So now we only have $9,000, but we did get some soil samples. So let's take a look at the data and see what we're working with. So it looks like we can get a potential yield of 109% on this field. We have a mixture of sandy loam and loam. And then we have a potential of 96% on the canola field with a mixture of loamy sand, sandy loam, and loam. No silty clay in this area. The grass field is. Field 20 is at 98%, mostly sandy loam, and then mostly silty clay on the grass field, and only going to be able to get 91% on that field at its best, at its peak. I believe it's ready to cut, but that'll be a secondary goal today. But let's go ahead and get started here. We want to make sure we are dropping some swath here. Make sure we're generating some straw, because that'll be an extra revenue stream. But so far, seeing on our data here a 74% yield, which isn't terrible, but we will be able to get that up, you know, about 30%, which would be amazing. We're getting 10.3 tons per hectare, and we'll have to make a decision pretty quick if we're gonna go into debt. One of the first things that I would purchase if it was completely up to me would be a way to generate flour. So we'll be looking around to see if there's an area where we could build on the property, or if we're going to need to acquire another piece of land to get a flour mill going. And I'm hoping to make that decision pretty quick. Just kind of waiting to hear back about the cattle from Cameron, and then that might free up some land for that. But again, I would love to be able to make that a field if we do make that, if they make that decision, because not necessarily something I want to make a call for. You have livestock. I know a lot of these families love it. It's part of the reason why they're in farming. They want the living creatures around. Those are beautiful cows too. It'd be sad to see them go, but is it in their best interest financially? Just not. It's a long investment. It's a long play in those until they grow up to be able to make some money off of sending them in. And I don't know if there's a lot of breeding potential in town to make money off of that, so I think we're leaning towards selling them though and reusing that land for something else. Let's get focused. Let's get this harvest done. See what kind of potential income we're going to get from it. Take some baby steps here on the Fraser Farm. Well, we got 1.5 times around the headland, but we need to get that unloaded, and just heard from Bobby. He should be here in a few moments, and it will be good to get him helping out around here. And we're doing all the work for Cameron. He is a little overwhelmed, and he will be helping us out at some point, but right now we told him to relax and start really just focusing on some decisions that we need him to make. And it might get to the point where he gives us the green light to just make all the decisions for him, which is ideal for a farm rescue, but we don't necessarily operate that way by default. We want to make sure that everyone's on the same page and really start to get to know each other and have them trust our work a little bit more before, you know, we even think about that. But I'm gonna get this headland done, and then we'll start doing some ups and downs, and hopefully Bobby will be here in time to take over the harvester so I can run the cart and maybe run into Cameron and make a decision. All right, Bobby has officially taken over. So we're gonna run in. I'm gonna get the JCB And we are going to, well, let's not run through the crop. We're going to get the forage wagon. And we're going to start picking up some straw. And I think we're going to get that sold today. I don't think we have anywhere to store that. And not really the funding to get a baler. Even leasing one would be pretty close. I just don't feel like it would be profitable to lease one. So I think we would just get the straw picked up by the forage wagon, find out where the best place in town to sell it today is. I think that's the best course of action. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna have to hop back and forth in multiple tractors myself, so I'm gonna get this out of the way for now. That means we can get going picking up straw, and you know, be honest with you, I'm not sure how quickly this thing's gonna fill up, to how many trips of selling this is gonna be, but we've got to do it. Like I said, I think it's the best course of action for the farm right now, as we're still in, you know, information gathering stages and figuring out exactly what we're gonna do next. Well, Bobby did want me to unload him here, so he stopped before turning around, which is good, so that he's not facing the crop. All right, there we go, unloading now. Should be able to do a couple more times before we have to unload this, so I can stay on the field. But while we're waiting, let's take a look at some data here to figure out where we're gonna sell this. There's a logistics center not too far away that has a pretty good price on straw today. It's, you know, about 60% of what it could be, but again, we have nowhere to store it, so it wouldn't make sense to keep it because there's no way to. So we got to pick it up now, get it sold. We'll figure out next time. We'll probably try to get a baler so that we can keep this stuff long term until the prices are at their best. But there we go, a little bit under a headland, not bad, so it won't be a massive amount of trips, and it looks like this place isn't too far away, so let's go ahead and make our first trip to make our first money on the farm. Outside that $100 we got for that fish we caught. All right, I believe we're just gonna take a left here. A tiny little road. I hope this is a one-way. It looks like it is. And then another left. And it should just be around in the back of this complex here. And I think we'll take this other route next time because it'll be quicker access. But we've arrived. Let's go ahead and see how much each load's gonna bring in. Get this sold for them. Yeah, just under $2,000. So we will, you know, we'll make a decent amount of money off of straw. It's nice to see money coming in on day one. That's always a good thing. Let's get back. Make sure we get that harvester unloaded and keep it unloaded. And get all this straw picked up. Look at that for a sight. That's pretty sweet. And naturally, picking up where we left off. I think it's time to get focused, get some work done, and check in with you later. All complete with the harvest now. You see we got about halfway through picking up the straw, so that's pretty good time. I don't think we're gonna completely be able to unload this though. I think we're gonna have a little bit left in the harvester, so we'll have to drop off the grain, come back for the rest of it, and then we can get going on that barley harvest. But let's get the rest of this in the silo. We'll do a little recap of how we did on this harvest, and then we're probably gonna take a lunch break. And there was 2,600 left over in the harvester after dropping off that full load, so we'll get this dumped. That'll be able to show us the entire amount that we have. And what a cool feature this building is. I guess this is not storage. We can see the grain in here. There's our wheat, our bulk hull there. That's all done. So that does tell us 41,211 liters, but let's look at the advanced data. And field 23 is what we finished, so we want to take a look at the data here. You can see 31,212 liters were harvested. Not too bad, showing a potential of 13,888 right now. Wheat prices jump up to 1,200, so that's when we'll be able to sell them, most likely in January or late December. But taking a look at the yield, a good majority of it was 75%. Then we did have some that was 85 and some that was 90. So we'll definitely be looking at improving that next year. But right now we're going to take a nice lunch break, have a good conversation with Cameron, figure some things out, and then do that barley harvest. And after a quick lunch break, our dollar amount is all the way up to $31,000. We did get the blessing to sell the cattle. I think it's a good move. We'll be making this a field later on, but we got to get back to work. 31,000 bucks is what we're up to. So we've had a pretty awesome day so far. So we got to get the harvester on the barley field. We'll get Bobby going on that. And I got to finish the straw in this field. And I think that's going to be the priority for August, is finishing the straw here and getting the barley harvested. And then we can worry about the straw in September and start prepping these fields, because we're going to want to get them turned around pretty quick. But we also need to make a decision on what we're going to do with the wheat and barley. Are we going to figure out if we can get enough money to get a flour production going, or are we going to sell all the grain this year? So it's a little bit of time to figure that out. If we do decide to go with the flour mill, I want to figure out how to finance that pretty quickly, because we're going to want to start producing the flour so we can have as much of it as possible when prices peak. There's no way we're going to be able to produce all the things that we need and buy the feed production this year. So we're definitely going to want to try to make as much money as possible off of the goods in the existing farm. So them's the ideas. Those are the plans. But let's get Bobby going, and we're going to get back to picking up some straw here. And yeah, Bobby should be doing pretty good on that, and we'll get over there to help him with the cart. It shouldn't be too long until we get this field finished and can just focus on the barley field. I'm hoping we get a couple, like at least one more full load here. And this dollar amount, I was really hoping to see it above $40,000 today. Didn't make as much off the cattle as I was anticipating. So we're at 33,000 right now. So we got a little bit more money to make, and then more money off the straw on the other field. So we might be able to get close, and I think that's about the budget we're going to want if we want to get a miniature flour mill going, because I don't think it would make sense to invest in a highly, a high output flour mill. Just a regular grain mill to get a little bit of flour going, to start feeling that extra income that can happen when you are taking a product that you're growing and then turning it into another product that's worth more money. So that's what I'm starting to try to teach the Fraser family, and we'll see how that goes. Make sure we have enough money. Like I said, we might look into some options that we have to do some financing. One of the things Bobby and I were talking about with this new business is to potentially... Why is he doing the headlands first? Or the ups and downs? That's not right, Bobby. One of the things Bobby and I were talking about with this business plan, with all the money that we made off of Whiskey RP, is we could technically give a little bit of a line of credit ourselves and not get any banks involved, and kind of treat it as be our own bank. And that's something we'll keep in mind. Definitely talked to Cameron about that, and it's something he might be interested in. It's just going to depend on if it's a good move or not. So that's definitely something that we're thinking about doing to eye the feed production. But we don't want to do that so we have all the products that go into it. And we need to produce oil as well. So there's a lot to think about going into this. One of the things that I did tell him was that if we do that line of credit, we're going to extend our contract with him until we help him pay it off. So that'll be one of the caveats that we're going to have to that, is if we do take a loan out or a line of credit, and if we'd extend the line of credit to us, we're definitely, it's in our best interest to get our money back before we head off and make sure that this farm is functioning without us and ready to function without us when that time comes. So those are things that we're thinking about and possibilities. And at this point, I think it's probably in the best interest of both parties to explore that route to speed this up so that we're not here for 4 or 5 years. you know, we do have other leads already for some rescues that we are potentially going to do in the U.S., so I'm itching to get back to that and really establish a home base long term as well. And heading over to unload Bobby for the first time here on the barley field, and we'll take a look at our first numbers as well while we're doing that, so we can know how this field's treating us. Pretty similar to the other one. We do have some 80, we have some 60. What do we have? Do we actually have that bad a yield going on? Let's go ahead and just clear all these out. We got some 65, we got a good amount of 70, and then some 80, 85, and a little bit of 90 and 95 going on here. And 88% right here, 11.6 tons per hectare at the moment. All right, well, Bobby's gonna get going on that. We're gonna go in and sell this extra load of straw, and then we just have a little bit left to do on this field. And another 1,700 here. The harvest income up to 34,000. And being good stewards here, we're making sure we're getting all the straw in the field. There's a little speck there, but a couple more passes, the little tiny ones up here, and then we'll be done and be able to completely focus on helping Bobby finish the barley harvest. All in all, I think it's pretty fun to be in a different country, doing some farm work, seeing a different landscape, probably some different equipment that we'll be seeing in the future. Yeah, what a pretty environment. And this will probably be the last money we make in August. Another 5,000 to drop off here. Just loving the detail of this area. Everything I've seen so far is just sweet. So another 575. Looks like we got some electric charging stations there, and I'm reverting to being an American, going the wrong way around the parking lot. There we go. Still the wrong way, but that's all right. All right, let's get back, help Bobby finish that harvest. We're gonna put the JCB away for the night. Just focus on running the grain cart. All right, put that back in its home, and we will just park the JCB in here for now. It's undercover at least. And let's see if we can help out. Yeah, they're working on that headland over there, finishing the second one. 80% full, pretty good timing. Let's keep this party moving. No more stopping, let's get it done. And finishing up the harvest here. If we're lucky, we won't have room in the cart, but I think we're gonna, by the end here, I think we're just gonna barely have enough room to finish this harvest. And all done. Just need to drop this off at the silo and we are done for the day. All right, it is all deposited. Definitely tell we got more barley, or more wheat than barley, but 32,000's not bad. About 73,000, almost 74,000 liters of grain that we're going to get to sell. All in all, not a bad first day in Scotland. I'm Socks Way Up. Thanks for hanging out. I will catch you on the next episode.